Good morning. This is Tim Harris with the Harris Real Estate University, and this is the Harris Real Estate University Superstar Interview. So after a brief hiatus, we're back with live interviews, and today's superstar is someone that we've gotten to know through his website and some other sources, Mr. Jesse Gonzalez. So, Jesse, welcome to the call.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So let's put it out there, first of all, and let them know about a little bit about your background and just sort of roll into how you ended up. Because you've got an interesting story, and I appreciate it, and I think a lot of the students out there and realtors out there can appreciate how really out of frustration you created something really quite spectacular.
Well, it really kind of started back in 2007, probably around maybe September, October of 2007. I was a fairly new real estate agent, didn't have much experience. I came from the world of customer service, telecommunications. So for me, sales was not something I was real strong at. I didn't think it would be something I could really be successful at. But I got some encouragement from my family and my friends who said, you know what, you've always enjoyed looking at nice homes. You've always enjoyed when we were out, buying homes, being a part of that process. So go get your real estate license and see what it does for you. So I did, joined a local office here, a pretty big office that's known throughout the Southeast. And the office in particular I was in, the branch, had a really superstar HREU agent. She was probably closing, I'd say easily 300 to 400 deals a year. So, we had one of those traditional offices, where you walk in and there's these huge whiteboards with, all the properties listed, all the pending sales. And it was funny because I always remembered having one whole whiteboard dedicated to this one agent. And so, being a new agent, I didn't have the cojones to go up to her and be like, hey, what's up? How you doing? How you getting all this business? So I kind of laid low for a couple of months, studied the crowd, learned the etiquette, and sold a couple of her properties, actually. And I think it was like maybe the second property I think I sold, or the third, where I finally went up to her and I said, hey, look, let's be friends. Let's figure out what's going on. I'd love to get into this type of business. These foreclosures are cool. Tell me more about it. Well, in no uncertain terms, she basically said, get the hell out of my office. So I realized through my naivete, being completely ignorant to the situation, that was not cool, that wasn't going to happen, and she saw me as competition. So to be honest with you, it really kind of got under me. It really got under my skin. It made me very angry that this was how our industry worked. I mean, it was a slap in the face of the truth. And I thought to myself, this can't be how this happens. I'm not going to go down like this. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to find a way to make this happen for myself, and I'm going to be a better person for it. So I then went online, did some Googling, and you find a lot of the realtor forums like Active Rain and Agents Online, and I kind of realized something, that this was true throughout the country. I mean, there was no resource, there was no place that agents could go to find this business. It was a good old boys club, and being from Nashville, we know what that means.
Jesse, let me jump in here. I want to make sure everyone's understanding the underlying point of what you're making here. There's two or three things, and I'm sure you'll 100% agree with me on this. Number one is that the agents that have the listings live in fear of losing their listings every single day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're constantly worried about, reassignments. They're constantly worried about their score. And it's just like basically, guys, a normal real estate business where you don't really have a 6-month listing contract where your seller can fire you in at any time. You basically are applying for the job every single day, not just, once and then have the contract signed for 6 months. When you're dealing with asset managers, if you don't get the assets sold, generally speaking, in 90 days, and if you don't take care of the asset, well, they're going to fire you. They're going to reassign you. And so one of the big myths, and I like how passionate Jesse is about this, because we are too, because it's so frustrating is that a lot of agents are under the myth, basically they're believing a lie that it's too late to get into the REO business, where the exact opposite is actually true. And he's touching on the fact that one of the biggest and best opportunities and ways to get into business is, frankly, getting reassignments from another realtor who has failed to sell their assets. And the other thing is that across the country, guys, especially if you're reading the news, paying attention to the headlines that have to do with real estate, realestateinsidernews.com if you're not, the number of assets, the number of REOs, the number of foreclosures, everything is pointing to 2012 just being a huge, epic, colossal year. And, Jesse, I definitely want to talk about that, for the release of REOs. So I'm sorry to jump in on and by the way, I forgot to ask you where you sell real estate, so we'll get to that in a second. Sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. But yeah, basically, I found all these forums, I found all these websites, I found all these places telling me that, yeah, the good old boys club, it's who you know, so don't worry about it. And, well, I guess I'm tenacious enough. I guess I'm committed enough to this that I said, you know what, that's not good enough for me. That's not right. I'm going to get into this business come hell or high water. So I did some researching. I took her name. I Googled it. I found her designations. I Googled those. And then when I found the designations, I Googled the companies and the training organizations that were providing them. Found a conference list. From there, I found bank connections. Basically, it took me probably about 3 to 4 weeks of fairly regular research to find out what was really going on behind the scenes with her. So that's when I came across, through my research, a platform called Ning.com. And basically what that was is it's a networking site. You sign up for one of these little free networking sites and you're good to go. So, I kind of had this moment where I said, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to put all my eggs in this basket, make this decision to jump 2 feet in and say, here we go? Took me about a week. I put the site together, the REOPro.ning site. And, the first 2-3 weeks I had maybe 10, 15 people sign up, write a couple blogs, saying, oh, this is a great site. We really want to break open the REO business. We want to learn about REO. We want to know what it takes. And so I was really stoked about it. I was like, okay, May of 2008, I've got this new site up and running. I'm breaking into the business. I'm learning some names. Some people are sharing secrets. And the whole point behind the site, this was the whole thing that did it. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt there had to be other people in this country from West Coast to East that felt exactly like I did, who wanted to get into the business, that didn't have a mentor, who didn't have training, and didn't know how. And if we had all just come together in one place, shared what little bits and pieces of this puzzle that we had, put it together through blogs, forums, online chats, we could probably make something of it. Well, here we are today. I'm almost 10,000 members strong. We've got thousands of blogs, thousands of forums. I've got hundreds of contacts, and we've done it. And it really kind of is a testament to being told no one too many times. I was told no just to the point to where I said, you know what, I'm not going to be told no again. It's not going to happen, and I'll make it happen for myself, and that's what we did with REOPro.
So, Jesse, what does it take nowadays, from what you've been seeing, to become an REO listing agent?
I get this quite, if it's a conference, if it's someone who sends me an email, if they see me on online chat, that's the number one question I get, Tim. And you know what? My answer does not change. And it's so simple. It's so freaking easy that more than 9 out of 10 people listening, more than 9 out of 10 agents won't be able to do it. That's how easy it is. You have got to commit to getting involved in the industry. And that doesn't mean you need to go rent a $10,000 booth at 5 Star, or go and rent some big billboard. It means you've got to find an industry website, a website that is seen by asset managers, bank executives, special servicers, hedge fund managers, and even other agents, for goodness sake. And you need to get on that website. You need to create yourself a profile, and you better get active. Now, listen, some people are that flash in the dark. They will get active for about 3 weeks, nothing happens, and then they go, oh, this is just too much trouble. I can go back to my job working customer service. Go. Don't stay in the industry. You need to go back to customer service.
Well,
because
no,
the reality.
Julie and I are listening to you talk. She just walked by me. We're both kind of laughing because that is so true. I mean, really, you have to. It's just like starting anything. But, Jesse, it's kind of funny. Anything you get into nowadays, and I don't care whether it's in the real estate industry or not, nothing's going to be handed to you, right? I mean, if you decide to open up an Apple stand on the side of the road, there's a lot of other people trying to do the exact same thing because of this economy, and it's not going to be handed to you. And I've got, here's a little secret that's not a secret. Nothing is handed to you that's worth having, right? And so in this economy, in this housing market, the beautiful aspect of this is that there is a path you can follow. There are people, Jesse's out there. He's sharing his success. There's lots of top-producing realtors out there that we've interviewed. A lot of the names that Jesse, I know, they're superstars and the rest of it, just like you are now. The fact is, guys, is that you can do this just like Jesse is saying. It's not that big of a deal. And Jesse, here's what it comes down to. I think you'll agree with me on this one. Following directions, following instructions, being tenacious. The things that. Yeah, exactly.
You can't find people. Listen, I have been so frustrated, so angry with so many people who ask me that simple question, and I tell them, all you have to do is write a weekly blog letting people know about your community that you're selling in. Let asset managers know about the sales statistics in your area. Tell people about what your opinions are on industry influences in your area. That's all you have to do. Now,
and don't be negative. We need to say that, right? Don't be negative.
That's the worst thing you can do, because I can tell you, most of the asset managers remember me because when I call them, my customer service skills are on point. And
realtors, if you're listening to this, Jesse, I love your enthusiasm. You're motivating me. Realtors, listening now, pay attention. If you have ever written anything nasty about anyone or anything online, okay, be it the guy who delivered your pizza or some BPO company who you think screwed you out of a $45 fee, you need to go online and you need to delete that post. Because what's going to happen is nowadays, before an asset management company and sometimes a BPO company does business with you, they do a little homework on you. They Google you. They find out what's out there. And if they see that you're a complainer, someone who publicly complains, they will not hire you. I mean, Julie, can you jump on and tell the story about the agent, one of our students who was a new student and said they couldn't get asked? Okay, Julie's got a funny story.
Well,
Jesse.
So we, as part of our coaching, we give you guys free coaching calls occasionally, and I, too, go online and research before I call a student. I went and I found a combination of very interesting things on this one call. The first thing I found was a blog post about how she had been indeed abducted by aliens. Second thing that I found, true story, was a lot of complaining about how she hadn't been paid by BPO companies. So, and I found that within 10 seconds. Is that what you're talking about, Tim?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't remember the aliens one.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
That was fun.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact is, guys, is that you've got to be professional. This is not, unfortunately or fortunately, this is an easy business to break into, but it's also an easy business to get kicked out of. Easy in the sense that there's a path you can follow. Easy in the sense that not like normal retail business where oftentimes people choose you or don't choose you based on your social connections and things that don't really make sense. In this business, it really is, a lot of it is black and white. Now, granted, at certain levels, you do have to have personal contacts. I mean, Jesse and I are working on something for him for Bank of America. But the fact is, guys, is that this is a path that you can follow if you just pay attention and follow directions. And I love what Jesse said, and so did Julie. A lot of agents, so many agents, they just give up too quick. They put in a minimum amount of effort, and they think the world should just roll its red carpet out for you. Nothing works like that. Nothing does. Sorry,
Now,
Go ahead.
You're good. That's good, because a lot of these agents out here that I have dealt with through even my own networks have this custom sense of entitlement. They feel as if that all they should have to do is give you a business card, ask you a question, and magically appear the listing fairy is going to come and visit somebody. Well, honey, it don't work like that. And let me tell you something. If you've got bills to pay and you expect it to work like that, you better go get you a 9 to 5, because that's how that's going to work.
Jesse, I think the reason that you think clearly about this is because you do not have a long career of selling real estate, so you have not been polluted. You got into this, and but that is the truth.
That is probably the truth. I will agree to that.
Yeah, if you'd come from selling in the bubble, where basically it was not like it is now, where basically houses sold themselves, because after all, real estate only went up, where everyone with a pulse and maybe some people without a pulse can get a mortgage, and then the market shifted, and all of a sudden you are expected to be professional. You're expected to keep a schedule. You're expected to, be accountable. You're expected to turn in reports. Basically, you all of a sudden became an employee of the banks, which, by the way, guys, whether you like it or not, if you're dealing with short sales, you're dealing with REOs, you work for the banks. You don't work for your broker anymore. You work for the banks, okay? You are an employee. That's how they're going to treat you. And if you can essentially understand how the game is played, you can make unimaginable amounts of money, because so many other realtors won't get it. So what do you see? Go ahead.
You just hit on a very spectacular point. I have how do I say this? I have sometimes received selling agent complaints because they felt as if that I wasn't doing something fairly in the transaction for them. And I'm going to give you my number one complaint. And my broker has heard this so many times that he's getting to the point now to where I think it's almost getting ignored. The number one complaint, I will get a selling agent calling me up, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Oh, hey Jesse, you got any contracts working on this property over here?" Now, that's none of his business, first and foremost. In fact, I see it as a violation of my agency agreement with my bank or with my GSE, saying, I've got some contracts, don't worry about it. Because the first thing out of his mouth is going to be, that's all I needed to know. And then my little showing appointment schedule, I never see an appointment come in to show the property. So basically what happens is when someone calls in asking to know if I have a contract or not, the first thing I say is, we do update our MLS regularly, so have you checked the MLS? Well, no, we up here at the property looking at it now. I just drove by one to see you got some contracts on it. Okay, well, I tell you what, as a best standard of practice, we do not discuss offers, offer details, or contracts with anyone other than our client. However, we are accepting contracts for presentation, and I assure you they will be presented within 24 hours. That conversation doesn't happen like that in the normal traditional real estate world. Most of the time, the listing agent's going to open their mouth. They're going to blurb out whether or not they got contracts. And what's going to end up happening is that buyer's going to walk away because the selling agent's never going to show the property because he only wants to show property he can sell. My master list agreements with these banks and with these GSEs basically says I'm holding their confidentiality, but number one, I'm doing everything I can to get them the most money in the shortest amount of time. So you know what that means? That means I should be doing everything in my power in order to get a multiple offer situation going and getting the bidding war started so I can drive up that price. Now,
okay, let's take a side road because I want to emphasize your point. This goes back to what Jesse and I and Julie were just talking about, the fact that if you want to be successful as an REO listing agent, most agents, most realtors think that you are successful if you operate in the gray area. I'm sorry, but that's true. The gray area of basically marketing, the gray area of basically how you do things. And realtors are always, always, always looking for an angle, okay? That is the constant ethos in the real estate industry is what's the angle? How can I shortchange it? When they join our coaching program, I would say 1 out of 50, they won't want to basically follow procedures. They'll say, okay, well, how can I jump to the head of the line and all of a sudden just basically like I was in the Matrix, patch in and get all the information just downloaded into my brain. They want to skip steps. It doesn't work like that. And here's the thing that a lot of you, just going back to the accountability aspect, Jesse was talking about the fact that his master listing agreements, and especially if it's with the GSE, what a master listing agreement is, for those of you who are new in this space, is that you sign essentially just that, a big listing agreement that's like 47 pages long sometimes, that says what you can and can't do. And one of the things you can and can't do if you're working with a GSE, it's Fannie or Freddie, or sometimes it's, well, anyway, so let's just stick with that as the understanding. When you're working with Fannie or Freddie, you cannot tell anyone you're working with Fannie or Freddie, which, by the way, Jesse, I think I mentioned that on your email, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, hopefully you corrected that. Yeah,
so
there's certain things that you can't do and certain things you shouldn't do, and if you do, they will fire you, and not just fire you with a warning. You'll just get a notice saying your listings have been pulled. Now, how do you know that they're going to, like, just to put it into perspective, you can go in the old days and you could tell your seller that you're going to call every lead back, you're going to do all this, you're going to do all that, and really at the end of the day, nobody was holding you accountable. In this world, they check on you. Okay? Fannie Mae was, we had heard before it became public that Fannie Mae was checking on listing agents. We told our students this, and indeed it came out the break of the year that Fannie Mae had launched a secret shopper program and was calling agents, calling as if there were buyers, finding out if they were talking about home steps, checking on whether or not they were actually abiding by the rules. Well, here it is, guys. It's towards the end of the year of 2011, and I'm telling you that Fannie Mae for sure is doing that again right now. So they're checking on you. They're looking for reasons to fire you. That's the difference. It's like a job. And depending on your market, the next statement may or may not be as, true, depending on your market. So, for example, if you're selling in Washington, D.C., if you're selling in San Francisco Bay Area, not over the bridge in Oakland, but in the Bay Area, if you're selling in certain parts of Seattle, okay? I mean, we pretty much have students all over the country, and there are pockets that are doing really well now. But for the rest of us, which is the majority of us, we work for the banks. You work for the banks. I work for you, who works for the banks. And if you want to succeed, even at a low level in this industry now, you have to learn how to operate by the rules, follow the rules, learn how to do PPOs, learn how to do REOs, learn how to do short sales. The market's getting worse, guys, not getting better. So just accept that and stop trying to figure out how to game the system. Just follow the rules.
Speaking of following the rules, it has gotten me to the point to where I actually have the business card of the Office of the Inspector General for HUD in my desk, because I have been approached by so much fraud in this industry that I finally got to the point where I said, I'm going to report this. This is just going to get reported every time I run across it. And the silly part to this, the part that absolutely blows my mind, is that if 9 out of 10 agents aren't going to really do the job in the first place, okay, so you only have that one agent out of 10 who's probably going to do it. And then if they do shoddy work or they don't do it well, unfortunately, that doesn't just hurt him. That hurts all of us in this industry, including the buyers and our sellers. So for me, it becomes a situation where I had to start policing my own industry in my own local market. And have I been shopped by my GSE? Absolutely, I have. In fact, I can recall the conversation because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt the type of questions this person was asking. There was no way a general buyer would have asked them. And, what's funny is if a lot of agents would just, when that phone rings, you pick it up and you say, hey, Jesse Gonzalez speaking. They say, hey, Jesse, this is, Joe Smith. I was on this home pass site and saw your property over here on Nashville Lane. Tell me a little bit about this home pass. If you, as a good listing agent, staying true to your regulations, said, well, Mr. Joe Smith, I'd be happy to help you in regards to that home path information. However, before we get started, as a matter of ethics, can I ask you, are you working with an agent currently? That you just resolved a lot of your issues right there, because if they're working with an agent already, then it's real easy just to go forward and say, well, I can definitely answer some specific questions for you about home path, but if you are working with an agent, in order not to step on that agency agreement, I'd highly and strongly suggest that you speak to your agent.
Right. I mean, but
people don't think like that.
Let's go. I'm going to take this to a slightly different angle because really we're saying the same thing, and hopefully people are understanding. And Jesse, as you and I are talking, I'm hoping that agents out there who are like, oh, well, there's so many agents out there, as you know, and I'm sure even in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where you sell real estate, you've seen this too. Agents who basically have been hoping and praying the market would return to balance and that the, real estate crash would be over and the clouds would part and the real estate angels would bring down our little gifts of easy to sell listings and commission checks again. Mm-hmm. But I think what we're in the middle of, I know, and I'm sorry to say a statement like that, but it's true. We're seeing a huge sea change shift in the way the real estate industry is going to operate. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, one of our graduate students sent me over Bank of America's new commission agreement for REO listings. Now, this might just be for the LA area, but maybe it's not. And what they're doing is on the listing side, now he's got a ton of Bank of America listings, but they're paying 2.5%, and they're charging a transaction fee to the listing agent. So, okay, well, what's the big deal, Tim? A lot of different asset management companies have done that. Because what's happened, guys, is the banks, when Julie and I got in this industry forever ago, the big fear was the banks were going to get into the listing and selling end of the real estate business, and then they're going to somehow, with the mortgage end of it, control the industry and squeeze agents out. It happened, right? I mean, they're setting the commissions. They're controlling the inventory. The banks are basically deciding, literally, with their ability to release inventory or not, they're the ones that are controlling appreciation or depreciation. The reality of it is, guys, the next 36 to 60 months at least, and sometimes longer depending on your marketplace, again, get this clear in your head. You're no longer an independent contractor. You don't work for yourself, okay? Your broker and you both work for the banks. Even if you don't list REOs or don't list BPOs, you're going to be selling them to your buyers. Guess what? You still work for the banks. Now, why am I so emphatic about this point? Because it's a mindset. And once you accept it, once you just say, okay, I work for the banks, I'm perfectly cool with that. What do I have to do in order to win? You right there have leaped ahead of your competition because 99.9% of the other realtors out there are still thinking, I'm an independent contractor. You can't tell me what to do. Okay, Jesse, I'm on your website and I'm reading on how I can contact this person and follow these procedures, but come on, dude, give me the real inside scoop. How can I skip doing the work? How about the agents that think they can get REOs without doing BPOs? Guys, get over this mindset. It's going to lead to nothing but your new script and your only script being, would you like fries with that?
Well, it is a mindset. It absolutely is a mindset, and it is that you're going to have to put into practice. If you don't know what it's like to get up in the morning, to get a schedule, if you don't know what it's like to be up at a regular time, if you don't – listen, some agents out there are very fortunate to where they have another income in their home, and they don't necessarily have to work to make their livelihood. I'm not one of those agents. So when I get up in the morning at 6:30, even though my office doesn't open at 9, I come to my home office, I sit down, I get my schedule together, I look at my calendar, I make whatever little phone calls I have to do. But my client base, my banks, asset managers, they're on East Coast time. I even have some that come in at 7 East Coast time. So you know what that means my hot mess is doing? My hot mess is up and at my desk, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, to ensure that I'm in place for any prospective closing documents that are going to come through, any notification that cleanouts have been done, any weekly property inspection tasks that are going to come in, so that not only will I confirm that I've received them in the same time frame that my client sent them to me, i.e. a bank, asset manager, GSE, but I'm going to get them done before lunch because I'm going to try to beat the morning rush hour traffic.
Perfect. I mean, it makes good sense. Let's reel this back in. Let's focus on specific things that agents can do that you've experienced from, your own business, but also talking with agents. Let's talk about some specific things that they can do, like asset managers. This is a topic that comes up a lot. Now, guys, don't be confused. Again, I'm speaking to the masses, but I really want to focus in on those of you who are just getting into this space. An asset manager, Jesse, what's an asset manager?
An asset manager is your client. They are the person who is assigning you your listing. If you don't know who your asset manager is and you don't have their office phone number, fax, and email, and
birthday and sign,
in some cases, personal cell phone number and home phone number, you might have a problem.
Sounds like a comedy routine, doesn't it?
You know
but that's true. And I had that conversation just this week, and maybe he's listening on this call, another graduate student who had this really great it was getting a very consistent flow of assets, and I'd asked him what he'd been doing lately to basically, ingratiate himself to his asset manager, call up his asset manager, service his asset manager, and he said the person he originally had the contact with, I think it was 2 years ago, was no longer working there, and he didn't even know who the new point person was.
Wait. I have got to stop you because this happened to me. I have one main client, okay? This client keeps me probably anywhere between a revolving listing inventory of 15 and 30 assets a month, okay? This client outsources their listings to a third party, and I am registered with that third party, and we'll call that ABC Outsourcer, okay? So all of my listings, the bulk that I'm getting from ABC Outsourcer, my asset manager, the guy I have a great relationship with, calls me up and says he's been let go. So I'm tripping. I'm like, oh, dear God, dear Jesus, help me out. What do I need to do? Where are my listings going? Who's got them? So I get this new asset manager, and she tells me that she's heard wonderful things about me. She's definitely going to keep me moving forward, and we get a good relationship and rapport going. About 6 months into this, I get a little notice in my email that says, this particular third-party outsourcer, ABC Outsourcer, is no longer working for the main client, and I'm going to lose my entire inventory. There was definitely some shovel-ready projects here in my office that day. So I'm extremely upset, confused, don't know what to do, so I start using my network, finding out where my inventory is going, hoping to God it's going somewhere that I can try to get my inventory back. But let's face it, the likelihood of that is 0 to nil. So about 2 days into this, I get an email from someone in my network that says, I found out where your inventory is, going to this other outsourcer, XYZ Outsourcer.
So hold on, Jesse, let's take a side trip here. I just want to explain everybody. What happens is that, say, for example, I'll just break it down. Bank of America, let's say, has this massive amount of homes that they're going to put for sale. Bank of America only personally handles certain types of homes. An asset is a real estate listing. Generally speaking, Bank of America will internally keep the more expensive assets. So even at that, Bank of America can only handle a certain number of assets within their asset management division. Let's just call it that. So then what happens is this portfolio, this large collection of homes, the ones that they aren't personally going to sell through their direct listing agents, Bank of America Direct, is then they send those off to third-party asset management companies. Okay, so you can be getting Bank of America listings, which is one of the crown jewels of relationships to have, directly from Bank of America or from a third party. But what happens oftentimes is that these third parties will lose their little portfolios. So this third party that was listing assets for Bank of America could all of a sudden, basically for whatever reason, lose that relationship. And then as Jesse just said, that portfolio of assets will then move to a different asset management company. And if you don't have a relationship with that new asset management company, bye-bye assets.
Yeah, that's where I was at. I was SOL. I was in that exact place. So I'm screaming, hollering, trying to figure out through my network where my inventory is going, who's getting it, what applications I need to fill out, who I need to send my resume to, and then it happens. I get a wonderful, God-loving, hallelujah moment phone call. The previous asset manager, the guy I had a relationship with 7 months ago, that was fired originally, says, Jesse, I just got this new job at this new asset management company called XYZ Asset Management, saw all your inventory come over to this company, and I'm in charge of Tennessee, so guess what?
How cool is that?
Oh, have you ever had a warm and fuzzy moment?
Well, but so, that actually leads to another great question. And I want your take on this, Jesse. How do you keep the asset managers happy? What is it that you specifically do to service the asset managers? It's a major topic with anyone that has inventory through the banks. So tell me what you specifically do to keep them happy.
Other than my overjoyous, bubbling personality.
Which you do have.
Thank you. It's communication, and that's really what it is. It's nothing but communication. Your asset managers, when they call you Saturday evening at 11:30 in the night, and you up at the club drinking your gin and juice, you better step outside the door, find a quiet spot in the alley, and when he asks you where ABC 123 Money Pit Lane is at, you better know it.
Do they even have clubs like that? Do they even have clubs like that in Murfreesboro, Tennessee?
Well, you got to go to Nashville for that. but Nashville, keep in mind, I actually live and work primarily out of Hermitage, but because I live in kind of a rural area, my area covers like 4 counties because I'm like at the corner of 4 counties. So, we have some good choices. Nashville, Franklin, Hermitage, you get your little groove on.
Jesse, let's build on what you just said, okay? So he said what he was just, he's relaying to you personal experiences. But what he's really saying is you have to be like Batman. If they throw up the bat signal, you have to be there. You have to throw in your cape and you have to solve the problem. Because the asset managers, just so that everyone understands the relationship with the asset manager is not so different than you on the food chain as the listing agent. They're judged, valued, paid, and retained based on their ability to get you to do your job. That's really the bottom line. You are scored as a listing agent, and you can get a copy of your scorecard often. Existing listing agents, whether you're a Harris Real Estate University or student or not, do whatever it takes to get your scorecard. Some asset managers will actually allow you to fly in to see them, sit down with you, review your scorecard, tell you how you can improve, and, oh, by the way, you think that scores you some brownie points? You went out of your way to do that? Heck yeah, it does. Now, here's a little secret for all of you. Another little idea is get your asset managers, give them a specific asset manager hotline. Get a second line on your cell phone. It doesn't matter. So that if they ever need you, that's a special ringtone on your phone. Tell them that you have given them a specific hotline that nobody else answers except you. That will set you aside in their mind. The main secret here, the key is you always, always, always have to communicate with your asset managers with the mindset of service. You have to tell them, and I know Jesse does this, what can I do to help you today? What problems do you have that you need for me to solve? Oh, and by the way, what assets would you like to reassign to me today? You have to be the guy that they look when they're looking at all their listing agents in your particular, in their particular area. You want them looking at your name and feeling warm and fuzzy, to steal a word, quote from Jesse here, feeling warm and fuzzy versus, oh God, I got to deal with that jerk. And so the way you accomplish that goal, understanding that they're valued, they're judged and evaluated exactly like you are, is you got to say, okay, well, I understand that, days on the market matters to me, and it also matters to you. When a listing closes, so for example, asset managers are bonused based on how many assets they actually get closed in a particular month. And there's something in the industry called rollover. Rollover is just that. It's supposed to close in October and it ends up closing in November. Well, guess what? If you can help them to get their assets closed on time, which means you have to get off your butts and do a little bit extra work with the title and escrow company and make sure they're not being lazy or complacent, because the title and escrows, they don't care whether it closes on time. You help that asset manager. You do all these other little things. You understand what their stress points are, and you relieve them. Listen, that is going to put you in their mind as someone who they will absolutely take care of when it comes to assigning new assets. You go to the top of the line. Now, some of these other asset management companies, the portfolio manager. Jesse, do you have any asset managers where the portfolio manager calls the shots on the assignments?
Yes, I do actually.
Share with us some techniques to get past the sentinels to get to the portfolio manager, because that's not as transparent.
It's not as transparent, and it's a much, much more difficult situation. You have to have a good enough relationship with the asset manager to actually give you the email or tell you who it is. Now, in some cases, the system is set up in a way where I don't know which portfolio manager assigned it to me because it's generic. It just says generic portfolio manager. So I have to call my asset manager. I have to say, hey, Joe Blow, who actually sent this to me? He's going to say, oh, it was Jane Blow. Here's her email. Thank you very much. And then I'm going to reply back to Jane Blow, and I'm going to drive the process. In other words, I'm going to tell Jane Blow, portfolio manager extraordinaire, goddess on high, I'm going to say, Jane, I've been out to the property. I've uploaded all the tasks. I need to know, is FAS going to come out and do this clean out? I have a contact over there I can call and let them know I'll meet them at the property. I'm driving the process.
Okay, stop. This is such a good point, Jesse. I love this point. Versus having ResNet or Equator telling you what your next task is. Okay, yes. He's talking about taking it to the next level and letting them know. He's not basically, when they give him 24 hours to do a task, Jesse, I am assuming you do it immediately. He's not waiting around for the next task on ResNet to tick over and say, okay, now it's time to do this. He knows what comes next. By the way, guys, it's always the same order of tasks. And he's letting them know that he is Johnny on the spot, and he's going to get that asset turned fast and sold as quick as possible. You think that makes a difference in their mind, considering how fast assets get sold? It leads directly to them keeping their jobs, let alone getting bonuses?
Yeah, driving the process is staying. First of all, you got to have good communication. You have to be available, and then you have to drive the process. Those three things are what, at least my asset managers, through my experience, love about me. That's what I do. My asset manager knows that his personal information is in my cell phone along with his business information, so that when he calls me, I'm picking up first 2, maybe 3 rings. If it does go to voicemail, he is getting a text message immediately saying, sorry, missed the call. I'm in a meeting. I'll call you as soon as I'm out. Okay? 2, so you've got to be available. Communication. You've got to know what your properties are doing and where they're at, because if this guy calls you and has a question, you better be able to answer it.
Okay,
and those of you,
Jesse, that's another really good point that don't assume that anyone knows what you're talking about. So, guys, what does that mean, Jesse, when you say you got to know what's going on with your properties, you got to know, be specific?
All right, here's a good example. If the field asset people are call in, they send you an email saying that there was a water pipe bust under your kitchen sink over here on this condo on Leisure. Then 30 minutes later, when you're likely going to get that asset manager call, or the very next day, whenever, your asset manager doesn't need to hear, oh, yeah, I got that email, and I was going to go out there later today. No, baby. You should have already been out there. You should have already got your pictures. You should have already scheduled your emergency water turn-off if you don't already have a water key in your trunk to do it yourself. And you better already have sent an email to your asset servicing company telling them what happened, what they need to do, and you should have CC'd them on your asset manager on it, so they didn't even have to call you in the first place to know that you were already on it and getting it resolved.
Our top listing agents, REO listing agents, what they do, and you can do this when you're just getting started in this space, they're going to test you out with probably some doggy listings. That's just the reality of it. When you start getting assets, you might hit a home run and get a really good one. I mean, one of Julie and I's first assets actually was a $1.3 million house that we got assigned to us directly from RE/MAX, which was kind of interesting. But that aside, I mean, this was like 20 years ago. That aside, the fact is, guys, is they're going to test you. They're going to test you with hard-to-sell stuff. They're going to test you with something other agents weren't able to sell. And then you have to be monitoring the condition of your assets. Jesse, I know you couldn't go the full hour, so you guys say when you got to jump, okay?
No, we're good now, actually, because I think we rescheduled some things, so we're good.
Okay, so you have got to be sending somebody out when you have big inventory. Do it yourself up until that time, and monitoring your assets. If you find the worst case scenario, what Jesse just said with a lot of humor, is if they discover one of your assets has got a problem before you do. Okay, and how did it go ahead?
That will not end well.
Yeah, that will not end well. Exactly. Everyone in the country except for maybe a handful of states, you're coming up on the winter. If you're sitting around with assets waiting for the bank to send you, oh, hey, Steve, we thought it would be a great idea for you to winterize your properties, it's too late. You probably already missed the first freeze and your water pipes are freezing. You've got to be way ahead of the curve. You have to be checking on these assets. Even in the middle of the winter, like if you're from Columbus, Ohio, where Julie and I sold real estate, it's in the middle of the winter, and there's snow and ice on the ground, and you have REO assets. You've got to go out there, and you've got to make sure the sign's in the yard. You got to make sure the lockbox is on the door. You got to make sure the lockbox works. You got to make sure, everything's as it should be. The heat's on, the gas is on, the electric works, the water's off. You have to be doing all these things. After a big storm, big snowstorm, you got to make sure that there's no branches on roofs. And guys, it is a job. Like I said, you work for the banks. You have a responsibility to these assets. They do check on you. Jesse was talking about the preservation people and what a preservation company is. 5 years ago when you took in a new asset, you would get it fresh post-foreclosure with all the loveliness that often is left in the house after someone's forced to move. Nowadays, you get an asset. Do they generally preserve your properties for you, Jesse, in Tennessee? I'm really not sure.
It depends on my client. I do have a client who does a very good job at preservation, and then I have another client who's just like, here it is.
Okay. All right. So in most parts of the country, guys, right now, when you get an asset, it's already been property preserved. In other words, they sent out a crew to knock it out. Fannie Mae actually was using, I think it was Home something or another, one of these big home improvement chains. They're going out and putting in new kitchens and carpet and replacing appliances and things like that. If then you get the asset, basically it's in really great shape and you don't have to really do that much work to prepare it. If you're in more rural areas or if you're in a major metropolitan area servicing a rural area, chances are you're going to have to preserve that property yourself. Now, it is rare, but regardless, once you have that property listed, you're accountable for it. You got to monitor it. You got to check on it. It's interesting, as I go through this, I'm thinking to myself, the average agent, and Jesse, I'm just going to ask you this question straight because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. The average agent who's listening right now, and they're saying to themselves, oh, my God, this sounds like so much work. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to have a boss. I don't have checklists. I don't have someone holding me accountable. What do you have to say to that person?
Yeah. That's what I had to say. Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's the extent of it, right? I mean, you're not going to make it.
I don't
want to hear
no more. I don't want to hear no whining, crying, screaming, hollering. I don't want to hear it. I'm just going to say, yeah, and then let you fall apart, make a mess, and then I'm going to come right up behind you and take over your listing for you.
Well, and then that's how it rolls, guys. And so, Jesse, there are lots of examples. And I'll mention a name. Ryan Finch, who's in your neck of the woods, is a great example. I mean, he's somebody who came from he was a plumber, actually, and he got into the industry about the same time, I think a little bit before you did. He was a great selling agent before he got into REOs, but because he had the same type of business mindset that we're talking about now, he scored some major asset manager relationships, and he's tracking to sell like 500 to 600 assets in the next 12 months. And guys, the reason I'm sharing with you Ryan's, and he was a superstar interview from a while ago. You guys can listen to that one. We interviewed the top Keller Williams agent, who, by the way, no surprise, is the top Keller Williams agent. Not just because he's a brilliant guy, but also because he is a REO listing agent. In the country, what's happened, not happening, happened, is all the top agents are the REO listing agents, are the agents that are knowing how to do short sales, are the agents that are working actively to proactively try to solve the problem in our country that is the housing market. But here's the beauty of this. Jesse, do you plan on making real estate your career? I mean, after the market, say 5 years from now, are you going to be in real estate?
I love being the undertaker of real estate. I will always. That's a funny question, and let me explain to you why. People ask me all the time, well, in 6 months, our real estate, Obama says it's going to turn around and we all going to have jobs and my house going to be worth back to $1 million, even though it's actually only $150 right now. Okay, that's fine, baby. I got you. But you know what? There is always going to be divorces. There are always going to be estate sales. There are going to always be people who get fired. There are always going to be somebody somewhere who's going to need a short sale or a bank's going to have a foreclosure. And you know what? If that makes me the undertaker of real estate, I'm going to wear that badge proud for the next 40 years until I retire.
But honestly, Jesse, and I haven't come up with anything clever to replace this. But the idea that they're calling short sales and REOs and this area, this space, they're still calling it the distressed end of real estate.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I think that's totally and completely a misnomer. And
it is.
I think it's kind of silly. Well, who's more distressed? Jesse, who has lots and lots of sellable listings, and they're all priced right, and he has motivated, dispassionate sellers that just want them sold. Or, Jane, who's got a handful of listings and the sellers are all equity sellers and they're having to fight with a constantly devaluing market. Who exactly is distressed there? I'm not quite sure.
Well, it's definitely not me, and it's not my sellers. Because I can tell you right now, shopping for Bentleys is very difficult, but it's not something I have a problem with. Looking at opening, my own branch office, paying everything cash money, no need for credit. Oh, it really kind of tugs at my soul strings, but boy, I can sleep at the end of the night.
Jesse, how can you possibly be so focused? I'm being facetious, keep that in mind. How can you be possibly so focused on making yourself wealthy in a market like this when so many other realtors are hurting? How insensitive are you?
Who was it? Was it Rockefeller? Somebody said that fortunes are made in the time of recession. Who said? I didn't say that.
Rockefeller. And the other quote you're about to say, and the other one, which is really famous, was when there's blood on the streets, buy real estate, and that was Baron von Rothschild, which people always attribute to Rockefeller as well. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? I mean, that is the bottom line. You have a responsibility, and graduate students, you heard this spiel all week because I've been hammering you about this. You have a responsibility as a business person, as a professional, and in some cases as a family, like if you're providing income for your family or if your future, it doesn't matter. In this marketplace, you have a responsibility to make a crap ton of money, okay? You have a responsibility to make yourself wealthy, not just you, but to build generational wealth. Buy rental properties. Jesse, I cannot imagine the smoking deals that are happening right now in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, for rental properties that 10 years from now you'll laugh because you got them so cheap. That's what this marketplace is about, guys. Now, listen, I realize that those homes were owned by people that had to, in some cases, be thrown out on their whatevers. But who's to say that wasn't the best thing for them? Who's to say that experience isn't going to charge them and turn their lives around? And besides, it's not your responsibility. At that point, when you're looking at what you can be doing to make a difference, if that's really motivational to you, selling distressed property, as it is called, makes a difference because you're removing unsold inventory. You're helping to cure the problem, to solve the issue. Okay? Sitting around and feeling guilty because you earn money, which I do see a lot with our students because they're earning a lot of money at the same time their brokerage is closing. I mean, I had that happen 3 or 4 times this year where some of our top students who are selling 200 and 300 homes per year, all of a sudden they found that their brokerages are closing and they're like all emotionally distraught because they're so worried about their broker and the other agents in their office. Worry on your own when you're not working, but be an example to your community. Be successful now when other people aren't being. That is absolutely positively what everyone should be doing because you set an example. Jesse, you are telling your community, your realtors, the other people you know, the people you come in contact with through your websites, you are telling them that it is okay to be successful right now. You don't have to feel guilty about making money right now. There is a huge portion of our industry that is truly confused about that, and they shouldn't be. Has that ever slowed you down? Do you ever experience some times like when you're getting big paychecks and having huge months? Does that ever confuse you?
No. I can't say that I have ever been. Listen, there's something about me I'm going to share with you that I very rarely share with anyone, and I'm kind of a little difficult sharing it with you now, but I'm going to tell you.
You realize that there's 1,163 people listening. I just wanted to remind you of that.
Okay. Thanks for the stress. Here's the problem I have. I grew up dirt poor, and I do mean I was in Texas, Medicare, living in urban city Dallas. My family lived in a shelter for 2.5 years, a homeless shelter. I know what it's like to be on food stamps. I know what it's like to get that AFDC check every month. I know what it's like to have the free lunch program at school. I grew up like that. I grew up having to go to the church clothing closet for 1960s clothes to wear to school 1980. It was
Hey, you were a hip trendsetter.
Yeah, is that what that is?
just like the poor kids now are wearing clothes from the 80s, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, the problem is that, we as a country and a society, we don't know how to deal with a massive rapid loss of wealth. And that's what happened when the housing bubble fell. A lot of people, the majority of our country, had money in their homes, and that was the bulk of their wealth. So when we had to get back to basics, a lot of people, instead of becoming independent, loving their liberty, loving their freedom, standing on their own 2 feet and saying, I'm going to make it my own and I'm going to do it my own, they got lazy, they settled back on their bum, and they looked for a government handout. And let me be clear. Some people needed that help. Some people need that help, and that's there, and it does good things for some people. I, as a young kid, benefited from that help. But our paradigm has changed so rapidly because we had it so good for so long that we've lost that entrepreneurial spirit as a society. And unfortunately, it's turning into more of a communal type of society, in my opinion. And, there are people out there who do feel bad about making money off of foreclosures. And let me be clear, it's very difficult for me because it reminds me of my own childhood. When I have to walk into a home that's $20,000, $30,000, it's a single mother. She's got 4 children, 2 jobs. Her oldest child is 14. She got 3 different daddies, 2 of which are incarcerated. And she's trying to make ends meet as a cafeteria lunch lady in her first job and then working at the Burger King on her second job. I get it because I have personally been there. When I leave that relocation assistance offer on the table for them and I walk away and I'm back into my car, I have had times where I have been bawling driving home, and I've had to call my partner and say, I can't do this anymore. This is ripping the soul from my chest. But then when that lady calls me 24 hours later, she says, Mr. Gonzalez, I'm going to go live with my mother. She lives in Memphis, and you gave me the money to get my family there so we can start over again. Then it does something a little different for you inside. It makes you look at what you've done and how you've helped someone in a totally different perspective. And if you can't enter this industry with that mindset, if you can't enter this industry with that type of personality and drive because you're not hungry enough, because you don't have what it takes, or you don't think you can get up at 6 a.m., then you need to go flip burgers at Burger King, because not only do I not want you here, I can guarantee you that the banks and the asset managers don't want you here either.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say, Jesse, and I really appreciate that point because it's so valid, right? The thing is in this industry, guys, you do have to have, as the Brits would call it, a stiff upper lip. And sometimes what agents will do, and we all make this mistake, is we are afraid that we can't handle it. So, for example, why didn't you call that seller back? Why didn't you call that asset manager back? Why aren't you calling your buyer leads back? Why aren't you doing the things that are necessary when Titanium sends you out on an assignment? Titanium's right now got a great Bank of America contact, and basically, if you're not working with Titanium right now, you need to be. So when they send you out there and you don't follow through and you don't do the job, why aren't you doing it? Seriously, why aren't you doing your job? It's because you're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about anybody else but yourself. Now, here's a little conundrum that so many agents face. Just like Jesse said, okay, it is nice libertarian perspective, which I definitely appreciate, okay? Okay, just like he just said, we have an obligation to help people with the skill sets that we have, and we have to set our own personal emotions aside. Oh, and by the way, you get paid handsomely for doing so. I'm going to say that again. When you don't follow up with that lead, when you don't follow up with doing your job because it's going to make you uncomfortable because you're afraid that emotional experience will be more than you can handle, you're not thinking about helping somebody. You're just thinking about yourself. It's your ego that's holding you back from actually helping other people. And in doing so, that same ego is holding you back from earning money. And then you'll end up basically failing. So the mindset of service, guys, it's not just like standing on a street corner and handing out your dollars, or standing on your, in your office and giving out your advice and expecting nothing for free. That's not what it's about. What it's about is doing your job at the highest level to the point where you make a ton of money, not worrying about that. There's an old saying, the best way to help the homeless is not joining them, right? And then when you get really good at your job, when you get really, not saying become dispassionate, not saying becoming uncaring, for Jesse, it would be impossible for him not to care, obviously. But you have to be willing to go out there, even if it makes you uncomfortable, and help people. And then you get paid for it, and not being in conflict with that. Because as Jesse's example, and there's obviously thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of stories just like that out there in the real estate world, when you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable, when you're willing to truly help somebody through a difficult time, because Jesse, hey, let's think about this for a second. What exactly would have happened to that lady and her kids and her 2 fast food working jobs had you not gone out there, given her the money to move? What would have happened to her? What's her alternative? If you'd said, I'm sorry, this is too emotional, too close to the heart, I can't handle it, what would have happened with her?
She would have never made it to Memphis. She would have never found her mother. She would have never put her family in a better position. And what would have happened? She actually had a boyfriend who, and this is a true story, people. She had a boyfriend who told her, stay here in Nashville, come live with me at this apartment complex, and we'll do our thing, and we'll get, on a better footing. If she hadn't had the financial resources to tell him no, that was her only option. She would have said yes. I actually have a postcard from her from Memphis, from Blue Street. She tells me on the postcard, real simply, John Doe, incarcerated 2 weeks ago, enough drugs for distribution, gone for 10 years.
Wow. That's amazing, isn't it? And that's because Jesse was willing to make himself uncomfortable. But here's another more practical, more immediate thing that would have happened. House would have been sold at auction. The sheriff would have come knocked on her door after putting a notice on there. She may or may not paid attention to it. He would have gotten access to the property, and while her and her kids are standing there, they would have taken all their stuff to the street corner. All the while, hopefully, there was a church there to set them up in temporary housing while they figured out where they were going to go, which would have probably been a shelter for the kids and a shelter for the mom. And that's a horrible situation. Had Jesse not been willing to make himself uncomfortable. Guys, I didn't mean to have this interview go this direction, but I'm glad it did, because the fact is, guys, there are thousands, if not millions of people out there that are experiencing hardship. You probably, in some form or another, know somebody or are personally experiencing hardship as a result of this economic collapse. Guys, it doesn't matter if it's a recession or a depression. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are amateur historians like Julie and myself, they didn't call the depression until it was almost over, right? So when people talk about the Great Depression in the 30s, during the Depression, they weren't going around and saying, hey, how's the Depression going for you? No, they just called it an economic slowdown. Historians called it a depression after it was almost over. So there's a little interesting side note for you. Historians will inevitably call this period a depression. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. The fact is the way that you can help other people, the way that you can make a lot of money, the way that you can, frankly, and I'm about to say something that makes some people uncomfortable. If you take this out of context, it's going to sound bad, but here it is. Take advantage of this market to make it so that you, frankly, and Jesse, this resonates with you, never have to worry about earning money again. You have the opportunity now to earn more money than you ever have. Certainly in the real estate bubble, you didn't have this kind of opportunity. Buy rental properties. Buy assets. Don't buy things that are going to depreciate, and make it so that 5 years from now, if you don't want to sell real estate, you don't have to. That is the interesting, amazing opportunity. Jesse, you said it. The quote earlier, basically, that the fact is that during economic downturns and depressions and recessions and pullbacks and whatever else you want to call it, that's the time when the greatest wealth is made. It's made on the micro level. That's you and me. We're micro, right? It's made by you going out there and making a decision that next year you're going to buy 5 or 10 rental properties. You're going to buy one. You're going to pay off your own home. This is your opportunity to set yourself up for life. This is just a cycle, guys. It's not going to last forever. But the wealth that you accumulate from this cycle can last even beyond your lifetime. That's what's exciting. And the only way you will accomplish that, the only way you're going to make that true, is if you help people. That's how all this connects. When you're willing to do your job, when you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable on a consistent basis, it gets easier because at the end of the day, it just becomes a series of scripts, but then you start accumulating wealth. Guys, be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with not having to suffer. Jesse, I have one last question for you. Ready?
Yeah.
You are successful now when so many other agents are struggling. Why are you different? What makes you so different?
You know, I think obviously we are all it all boils down to one simple fact, and that is I know what it's like not to have, and I made a decision to never, ever be in that place ever again. So for me, it was a lifetime of not having that made me get to the point to where I'm at.
I appreciate that. There's no nobility in poverty is what you have no conflict with. And that's, I think, a good place to be. So here it is, guys. I had a great, hopefully you've enjoyed it. I certainly have interview with Jesse Gonzalez. Jesse, I think in more ways than you know, you are a beacon for the real estate industry right now. You are willing to put yourself out, make yourself uncomfortable, be of service to other people. That's really what your website was all about. And you continuously do so, and you're reaping the benefits from it. You know, and there's no reason to believe that your forward, upward momentum, your trajectory will do anything but continue to go up. You know, and that's what happens when you have this mindset of service, guys. That's what happens when you're willing to set your own fears, your own ego-based, thinking aside and moving forward with frankly, your God-given skills and willingness to help other people. So, Jesse Gonzalez, I really appreciate you being this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstar. If they want to get a hold of you, if they want to send you a referral, let's say to Murfreesboro, or if there's an asset manager listing right now and they want to list with probably one of the greatest listing agents in the country when it comes to REOs, how do they get a hold of you?
To get a hold of me personally, the best thing to do is actually to go to my personal website, and that's www.jessegonzalezrealestate.com. Or, of course, if you want to get a hold of me through my networking site, that's www.reopro, that's realpro.ning.com.
Or your cell phone, is that okay?
How many people we got listening?
Well, yeah, but it's your call. This interview is going to live forever, so
well,
I think it probably behoove you.
Yeah, let's do that then. If you do have a question, a legitimate concern, or if you have some issues that you would like to address,
let me help you out. Let me help you out, Jesse. Do not call Jesse if you're an agent looking for his asset manager relationships. He won't give them to you. Okay?
No,
he won't give them to you. He won't. Okay? Don't call Jesse if basically you're looking how to shortcut how to become an REO listing agent. He's not going to take the time to even call you back. Call Jesse. See, I'm helping you out. Do call Jesse if you have a referral. Do call Jesse if you're an asset manager and you're looking for an incredible agent in the Tennessee Murfreesboro area. So, Jesse, your phone number is?
654-224-0961.
Okay, is that your cell phone?
That's actually my personal cell phone.
Okay, I'll give it to him again because it broke up. 615-424-0961. So if you guys have anything for Jesse and agents, please don't listen to what I said because I promise you this guy is busy. He's not going to, waste time with you. Follow the instructions. Don't look for shortcuts. Be willing to put in the hard work, and then you're going to reap the benefit of it. Guys, thank you for joining us for this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstar interview. And Jesse, I had a lot of fun. You have great energy. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the Short Sale Symposium cruise, by the way. So everyone have a fantastic weekend, and thank you for joining us for this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstar interview. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you very much.
Bye.